Hi there and welcome to my channel. I'm Alexandra Dolcheva, RN, investor and author of the book It Really Is Simple, A Holistic Approach to Self-Confidence. I had a conversation with a married couple not too long ago. Well, several conversations. They have been renting an apartment for a while and saving money for their first home. They're now at a point where they pretty much have the money to buy a property with cash because they didn't want to worry about mortgage payments and interest when they first started saving. They shared with me that recently they've been a bit ambivalent about the whole thing, meaning how it would feel once they see all this hard-earned money saved over the course of several years, poof, disappear from the bank account and go into a house. They'd love to live in the house, however, there is some hesitation along with the excitement going on now that they're about to make this decision. So I asked them, do you guys have enough money in your savings for an emergency or in case one or both of you lose your job for 2 or 3 months? Would you be able to pay your monthly expenses until you find another job? And they said, yeah, kind of. We probably have 3 months worth of expenses saved on top of what we've already saved for the house. But we don't want to feel financially limited by putting all this money into one nest and then starting from scratch again with saving. And then I asked them, how is your credit history, you two? And they said, well, it was okay, but we recently bought a couple of, things on a credit card, and now credit is not so good, trying to pay it off, but not doing it fast enough. And I said, what does that mean? And mine is, the wife says 660, and the husband said mine is 580, not ideal. So then I asked them, have you guys actually considered spending the money differently? That money you have saved for a house, instead of paying a whole chunk of cash on a new home, you could turn it into an income stream or even several income streams. With a really good credit score, close to 800, you can buy 2 or 3 investment properties if you put down 20% for each of these properties and start making cash on them with renters. That would expand your financial means quite substantially. They thought for a moment and said, oh, yes, but we still don't want to keep renting. And I told them, nobody says that all of these properties have to be single-family homes. For one thing, you can buy a single-family home with 10%, 5%, or even 3.5% down, and then with the remaining money, you can purchase 2 or 3 investment properties, or one of these investment properties could be a multifamily property like a duplex, triplex, or fourplex. And if you move into one of the apartments as first-time homeowners, you can get an FHA loan on that property, pay 3.5 to 5% down, and own a property with several other apartments for you to rent to other people. The rents that you'll receive from these other apartments should more than cover the monthly mortgage. They may even produce a little cash flow, even as you live in one of these apartments basically for free. I then went on to share with them that my very first real estate property was in fact a multifamily home with 4 apartments, a fourplex, and my boyfriend and I were living in one of these apartments while renting the remaining 3. Prior to that, I had been a renter in this country for over 14 solid years myself. Say you have 4 apartments, you live in one and rent 3. You should be able to cover the mortgage principal, interest, tax, and insurance, or PITI, with the rent from all these apartments if you did your due diligence in terms of market research and structured your deal properly prior to purchasing the asset. Meaning, if you ever have a vacancy, and in this case you're the vacancy because you're not paying rent while living there, you're still able to cover the monthly expenses on the property, which are the mortgage payment, obviously. Then if you have a homeowners association, that fee is covered too. And if there is any type of a utility bill on the building, like garage electric or a shared laundry room, that should also be covered by the rents without you having to spend money from your salary if you're still working. And then with the rest of the money you have saved, I went on, you guys can place 20% down on 2 or 3 more properties, whether single family or other multifamily homes. But since you won't be living in them it's got to be the full 20% down. And in some cases, lenders might say 25% down for multifamily, okay? Because the more you buy, especially when you're new to the rental industry, the more lenders consider it a risk. So to cover themselves, they sometimes may require a larger down payment. In the case with my first property, I ended up calling 15 lenders before I got the deal I wanted. It was not easy because I didn't own property at the time, so there was really nothing to put up as collateral. So my only advantage was my excellent credit score. But the key is that I persisted in calling lenders until I got what I needed. This is where your credit score becomes crucial, because if you are buying with cash, then it doesn't matter as you're paying the full sum up front. But if you're spreading this cash and leveraging it to get more properties to increase your cash at a higher velocity, then you need a good credit score to borrow the rest of the money so you can leverage. It's called buying power. So this very pleasant couple said, well, we could make some phone calls. And I said, yeah, straighten up your credit score, guys, because the other thing to consider is if you are buying more than one such home, lenders might not be willing to offer you the lowest interest rate, even with a great credit score, because you are taking more than one loan. And it's reasonable to try and acquire more than one asset since the prices are climbing and our fiat currency is getting devalued by the minute. But you have to look for excellent deals in the first place, which can be quite time consuming while being well worth it. Alternatively, I said, you may wait for the housing bubble to pop, burst, or at least adjust, and then you'll be able to buy even more homes, except you will likely face more competition from people just like you with a lot of cash on hand who will be jumping into buying cheap properties like you won't believe. But waiting for some price adjustment might also buy you time to improve your credit scores. So after brainstorming for a few days, they called me back and said, we're actually considering spreading our saved money over several properties, thinking of best options and looking around. And then they asked, well, how can we do this by ourselves without a real estate agent? And I said, that requires more time to find a great deal. And if you want the seller finance deals, then that's a whole different ballgame. And I will be shooting another video on that at some point, so this one doesn't get too long. But to just understand, if you have a large amount of cash and you're willing to grow it, there are several ways you can spend it depending on your risk tolerance level and also depending on how much work you're willing to do to expand financially over the course of several years. Nobody says that you have to spend your money on one specific asset, not to mention that your own house really isn't so much of an asset because you can't count on the market to increase its value, even when you don't owe money on it to a bank. You're still living there. It's not cash flowing unless you rent one or two of the rooms, which most people really aren't that enthusiastic about doing because the whole purpose of having your own house is to be able to enjoy the privacy. But if you are serious about creating streams of income that are not related to a job, real estate is a real, tangible asset. It's a great asset. And keep in mind that the passive income from rents is taxed at a much lower rate than income from a job. It's ironic, yes, you work like a horse at your job and get taxed a higher percentage on your paycheck, whereas with rental real estate, it's considered passive income you don't work for, and that's taxed much more favorably, and in some cases it even isn't taxed. Okay, now of course, once you start on the path of real estate investing, you want to hire an experienced accountant for your tax return preparation, one that deals with real estate investors and understands appreciation, depreciation, all these details that you might not be familiar with. So this is what I wanted to share with you today. Again, if you are contemplating investing in real estate and your credit score is poor, make sure you straighten that up as soon as you can, because credit score is buying power. If a private lender or a bank sees that your credit score is compromised, that tells them you're not keeping financial promises, and this is why lenders become more reluctant to lend you hundreds of thousands of dollars for a property, whether your own or for investing. Investment properties are considered higher risk by lenders in general because you depend on tenants and you'll need to prove that you have enough money somewhere in a savings or money market account to cover 3 to 6 months of mortgage payments should you lose tenants for whatever reason and need to find new ones, okay? Contact me with any questions. To schedule a coaching session, please email me at holisticselfconfidence.coaching@gmail.com. You can purchase my book through the links to my website and the listed book selling platforms in the description. And I'll see you next time.